Hi, listeners. It's Rachel. Just a reminder that we are off this week and next because of other work commitments, but we don't want to leave you empty handed. So here's an episode I recorded with Kate Casey of the Reality Life podcast about our favorite royal documentaries. You can check out the show notes for the complete list of documentaries that Kate and I name. And I want to make mention here that we recorded this interview before the health scares of the Princess of Wales, the King, and the Duchess of York. So keep that in mind for context. I hope you enjoy it, and we'll be back on February 21st with regular programming. See you then. I have with me today one of my absolute favorite podcasters, the amazing Kate Casey. Did I do it right?
You did. Thank you. I'm so happy that you said that. That makes me feel great.
I know. Well, I listened to your show. I love your show. And listener, she is the host of the Reality Life podcast. I actually had the honor of recently appearing on the show, and we had a really good time. And
by the way, was that a good episode or what?
I mean, I think so, but I'm a little biased, right? I thought
know people were saying how much they laughed. Yeah, because you're like positive and believe in people, and I'm more sarcastic.
And that's why we work, Kate. That's why we're a good team. We balance each other. We're the yin and yang. But listeners, Kate is a royal watcher. She knows what she's talking about in this arena. She's got a wealth of knowledge about the royal family. And I wanted her to come on our show and discuss some of her favorite royal documentaries, which is a topic that actually I don't think we've covered in the show in the almost 4 years of the show. So in addition to her podcast, she also has a Substack you can and absolutely should subscribe to. That is called What to Watch with Kate Casey. And in addition to Royals content, she's got amazing reality TV content, true crime content that I've really gotten into lately. Your Martha Moxley episode, Kate. So much good. So truly one of the best, most well-researched and thoughtful interviewers out there. Kate is an unscripted TV expert. You're welcome, who takes out all of the guesswork as to what to watch on any given week. You're a fantastic curator, and Kate has 5 kids, as we were just talking about. She has 5 kids. So she's obviously superwoman. And I'm really happy to have you here with me, Kate.
It's funny how people are like, oh my gosh, you're so busy. Cut to me like hanging out at a restaurant with somebody for way too long, talking about the royal family.
That's right. That's how we live.
So I'm like, I'm so busy that I you know what it is?
Yeah.
Here's the really good secret. When you have this many kids, no one asks you to do anything because they think you're
probably true, because they're like, she's too busy. She's covered.
Yeah, like I judge people with 1 or 2 kids. I'm like, oh, yeah, obviously you're gonna have
time. What about someone with no kids like me?
I'd be like, of course you have time.
How do I not have it all together? But
that's the problem. Everybody thinks you have time. Yeah. Exactly. So that's why you just have a bunch of children and then they'll leave you alone. I've never been asked to be like a room parent. And by the way, I would never want to be because I'd be terrible. Can you imagine me as a room parent? No, they'd be like,
you'd be a drill sergeant, like you just said.
But they'd fight over stupid things like poster boards and like raising money. And I would just go, okay, like, why don't we just do this? It's a lot easier. And then they would hate me.
Well, you've got enough going on. You don't need to be a room parent. But how did you get into the royal family? What was your entree point?
I remember my mother watching Princess Diana's wedding, which is very strange because I was so little, but very much my mother was very into the royal family. But I've always been somebody who is wildly fascinated by people's personalities, specifically people who are part of the aristocracy. It continues to be an obsession of mine, probably because it was so unlike my own. I've always said that the unscripted television for me is so fascinating because it allows you kind of to peek into the world of someone who has a life so dissimilar to yours. And you can't get better example of that than the royal family. In no way can we probably relate to most of the things that go on in their life. And because of that, it's just fun to kind of look from afar, to judge, and to kind of imagine ourselves had we lived the same walk of life. I mean, there are some things obviously that are similar. Like we all want connectivity and love, and we want to have great parents and all of that. But their daily life is so wildly different than mine. I always find them fascinating. And I also sometimes feel like a normal family, sometimes the person who's the most beloved and favored should not be. It's the other people on the sidelines who are far more interesting.
Are you insinuating something, Kate Casey?
Well, I just think like everybody gives too much shits about like Harry and Meghan and Diana, which is fine. They're interesting in their own ways. But like the other people, I'm like, what is going down over there? Like I kind of feel like Mike, Tyndall, and Zara are a good time. Like if I'm going to go there, I'm going to fly in. I
Yeah.
want to go out for drinks with them. I feel like they know where all the bodies are buried. I'm going to get them fired up pretty
100%.
easily. And they're going to go, let's break this down for you. So I would like to roll with them.
100%.
Princess Anne, got to tell you, I feel like despite her icy exterior, I feel like I could really get to know her.
I feel like
I
you
like
and Anne would be
Sophie.
good friends. I feel like you and Anne are
We would.
similar mannered.
I feel like Anne and Sophie and myself, if we were to go like on some sort of hunt or maybe go out to lunch, I'd be able to crack them because I'm not from their world.
You are a great interviewer. You probably could.
I would just be like, okay, let's talk about Meghan Markle. Like, what is going on?
Give me the real.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
well,
I feel like they would tell me
that. Yeah. Well, what compels? So that's your entree point. But what compels you most about the royal family today in modern times?
Well, I'm compelled by how they're essentially not. They're not really a family. It's a family business. Totally. It's no different than people who watch Succession and they like love every single second of that. You have your modern day Succession in the royal family. I think that all the moving parts of that family business is wildly fascinating. The way that Harry, for example, gets so upset about his station in the hierarchy and how they treat him, the fact that at this point of his life that he's surprised by it is surprising to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I got you.
It surprises me that Meghan Markle, as an American woman, a progressive woman, would believe that she could just kind of like waltz in and change the furniture around. Wildly fascinating to me. I think it's interesting, like who Queen Elizabeth's favorites were, who she didn't enjoy much. The fact that Prince Andrew is able to hang out and go to any events is unbelievable to me. Like, how is that even possible?
They keep soft launching him a little bit more, and I don't know how, I don't like that very much, but that's my own opinion.
I know I don't like that at all, and I just don't really enjoy Fergie.
I like Fergie now. I like Fergie.
They're trying to bring them into the fold once again, and I got over them a long time ago. I think it's like the newer generation. I'm really into them. I feel like we know way too much about, the others. We've been satirized by their stories, but I'm talking, what's the name of the really hot cousin?
The Shadow brothers, Princess Margaret's grandsons.
No, Princess Zara's brother.
Oh, Peter Phillips. Oh my God, I've said on the show a million times.
He's my favorite. I'm a happily married woman, but I would go on a date with him. I'm not gonna lie.
He has a girlfriend, much to my chagrin. That he got a divorce maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but he's happy in a relationship, whatever. But I do love Peter Phillips now. He's like,
I want to know what he has seen. That's what's interesting to me. And then all of the friends in the orbit of the royal family, like the friends that they met at Eton and whatever, and they get to go to the fox hunts and the things that they overhear. Oh yeah, that is way much more interesting than anything else.
100%. Well, speaking of interesting things, let's talk documentaries. So I have not on, and by the way, listeners, Jessica's not here because she is just not as big of a documentary fan as Kate and I are. So she politely excused herself from the conversation, which I respect, because if you don't have anything to bring to the table, then just let the others talk about it. So I haven't fully thought this out. Do you want to go back and forth as to documentaries to recommend?
Definitely. And I will say this, for people that are skittish about walking into the world of documentaries, I say this to you. You're about to have your hair blown back because you think you know a story. And once you start kind of peeling back the layers, you're going to be so obsessed with some of these that you're going to think about it for days. You're going to want to have conversations about it. The best thing in the world really is, by the way, just like you got to get on my Substack, on my must watch list, which you can get at katecasey.substack.com. And here's why. Once you start watching documentaries, you are going to be the party favorite. You're going to be the person on the table everyone wants to talk to because you're going to have an ability to discuss a number of topics. And should the royal family come up, which it will in your lives because everybody listening to the show already loves the royals, people are going to be so impressed with your vast knowledge. They're going to love that you're going to give them homework, which I'm about to give you too. We're going to give you things to watch.
Yes, you've got a lot.
You're going to go back to your lives and you're going to talk about this, and then you're going to give them homework. So they have an obligation to come back to you and hang out again. So let's say there's somebody at this dinner party and you're like, I'd really like to get to know them better, but I just don't know my way in. This is what you do. You start talking, you give them homework, and you say, cannot wait to go to the next dinner party. You have to circle back with me and tell me what you thought about it. You just
Yeah.
made a new friend. Congratulations.
Boom. Living life the Kate
Done.
Casey way, everybody. That's how we do it. So yeah, I mean, I think documentaries, I would rather, to for me personally, I would rather watch a documentary than just about anything. And so all of these, and by the way, we're only listeners bringing the best of the best documentaries to you. We're not bringing you like any rubbish documentaries. We're bringing a curated list just for you. So we're gonna get. I know from my side, I don't know how many you have on your list, Kate, but I have like at least probably 7 or 8 that I'm bringing. So we're going to give you plenty of fodder for documentaries. So do you want to kick us off? What's your first recommendation?
My first favorite one is called House of Windsor. It used to be on Netflix, but now you can get access to it on, I believe, Apple TV Plus. Honestly, you just Google it, you'll find it. House of Windsor is, I don't know, maybe like 6 or 7 episodes. The episode that I think everyone's going to love is the one about Prince Philip, because that backstory, his life, I find crazy. Yeah. All of his relatives, how he ended up, dating Elizabeth. Right. And then, of course, what their lives have been like since, but more so who he was prior to Elizabeth and the nutty members of his family. I mean, the story about his mom alone, you're like, wait, what? And the fact that people are so flabbergasted about what happens in modern times with like Meghan and Harry and Catherine and William, if you just peel the layer back and go back and read about what happened to Prince Philip and his siblings and his mother, you're going to not even believe it. So that is a great first step into the doc series world. House of Windsor. It's much more of the backstory on the family and how they became the House of Windsor. Of course, they had a different name and how they kind of adopted that. So that's my recommendation. You've seen it? You enjoyed it?
I have seen it. I didn't realize they took it off of Netflix.
There's sometimes with Netflix, there's a period of time. Like I just found that they had removed the Dolly Parton documentary, I Am Dolly, which is also excellent. There was like a 23 month, and which is weird, like 23 months. That's so specific, but
yeah, why not just round up to the 24 and make it solid 2 years? But anyway,
that period of time lapsed. So then other networks are free to grab it.
That is a great one. And I'm actually going to take a page out of your book and start broadly. So my, I guess, broader documentary that I'm going to bring to the table first is called The Windsors Inside the Royal Dynasty. Have you seen this one? This was on CNN.
I believe I did see it. Yeah. I like the CNN ones, by the way. They flow very well. Yeah. And I like the commentators. Sometimes if it's like off CNN or off Apple TV or off Netflix, depending on what network it is, some of the royal correspondents, I'm like, they did just find somebody at the pub and ask them questions. They may as well have me.
You over there, what do you think about this?
Yeah. It's like, righty. Oh, yeah, no.
Well, this is a 6-part CNN original series. It starts with Wallace Simpson, so around the abdication time.
Ooh, what a story on that one.
Oh God, I know, right? And then it goes all the way up to William, Kate, Harry, and Meghan. So that might not be my favorite one, but that is the first one that I'm going to bring to the table because it is broad. And while we're on the topic, by the way, of CNN docuseries, I'm going to throw another one in there, just kind of like a footnote to this. Diana. It's just called Diana. This was also a 6-part CNN docuseries, and it came out in 2021. And the whole shtick was that they wanted to show the person behind the princess. And again, like you said, CNN docuseries are good because they have really legitimate experts because they're CNN.
They vet them.
Yeah. And so those are the two, I think those are the only 2 CNN docuseries that I have. So already we've got 3 great, those are the two about the royal family as a whole are great places to start because they just are so broad, and then you can go more granular from there. So what's your number 2?
Elizabeth, the Unseen Queen. This was a 2022 BBC documentary about the life of Queen Elizabeth. This one was good because they used never before seen photographs and footage from her childhood. I love it when there's archival footage. I live for that. Tells the story of her life as a young princess through her coronation at age 25. I always like, looking back in time and wondering, like if I had ever had the opportunity, privilege to interview her, I would have asked her, like, who were you in your mind? Who were you at 25 just before the coronation? Like, who did you see yourself as?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. And I, you know what? Weirdly, our lists are matching up because my second one is also about the Queen specifically. This one is called Queen of the World, and it is from 2018. It's an HBO Max documentary, and actually, for whatever reason, the royally commissioned, I guess, documentaries are on HBO. I don't know what that means, but I also want to offer up, while we're talking about royally commissioned documentaries, again, a footnote. William and Harry commissioned 2 documentaries about their mom, Princess Diana. The first is Diana, Our Mother, Her Life and Legacy. I believe this is also on HBO Max, if I'm not mistaken.
That one made me cry. That one was sweet.
All of them, yeah. Both of these that I'm about to say made me cry. So William and Harry were involved in these. This one came out in 2017, so that would be 20 years after her death in 1997. The other one, I think, if I'm not mistaken, you're going to talk about this one, or maybe not, but it's the other one is called Diana 7 Days. Are you going to talk about that?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, just to say that it's good, and it's commissioned by William and Harry, so you know that it's
oh no, you're right. I did have that on my list.
Okay.
I lied.
I didn't know if I was making that up in my head or not, but so I'll let you talk about that in a sec. But the Diana, Our Mother, Her Life and Legacy has Charles Spencer in there, who you and I were just talking about offline. He has a book coming out in March, and then Elton John is in there. So I do love the ones that the royal family commissioned. And speaking of that, I'm just kind of all over the place right now, but this one is I want to know if you've seen this one because it's kind of hard to find. Have you ever seen the royal? It's just called The Royal Family, and it's the one from 1969 that the royal commission.
I've only seen clips because it's hard to watch.
It's hard to find. Yeah. So this one was commissioned by the royal family. It keeps getting, so first of all, it got pretty much wiped clean because this documentary does not really age well, right? Like, it was filmed in 1969. There's some things said that do not age well into our
they don't.
era. And so it popped up on YouTube a couple years ago, and that's when I watched it. But it's hit or miss. You might be able to find it on YouTube. I really don't know. It originally aired on BBC One and ITV back in June of 1969. It was timed around Charles' investiture as the Prince of Wales, and so the Queen later had it banned, and it hasn't been on television since 1977. So if you can find it, that at least at one point was commissioned by the royal family. I think it was Philip that was behind that, actually, and but it's more difficult to find now.
That was a great one too, because people had their own ideas of how they operated within the castle walls. I think people were elated for the opportunity to see, like, what is it like when they're just hanging out at home? Now, in retrospect, we look back and it's totally curated, which is a joke. But at the time, can you imagine if, you only see them at formal engagements, and then you get access to like what their living room looks like and decorating a Christmas tree? You're probably like, what?
Yeah, so the one scene I remember is them like sitting around. I think they were watching television, and then there was another scene where they're like sitting at the dinner table, and it's just it feels like very voyeuristic. Like, I shouldn't be here. You know what I mean?
I know, but I love that.
But anyway, I don't know if I haven't looked in a while. It's worth. I mean, if you like royal documentaries, it's worth at least trying to YouTube it and find it.
It feels very Kardashians, not when you go back and you look at it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. For many reasons, I get why the Queen said no, take it down, wipe it. But it's still interesting. It's a piece of culture, right?
I feel like they're always vacillating between. We want to seem human, but we still need to seem
exactly. And that is a tough line to walk, right? Like, we want to be regal, but we also want to be relatable, and that's always been the challenge. But all right,
but it's also like, you can't be relatable when you have all of this property and you're King Charles, and you have someone like waiting outside of your door to clip your toenails. You're not relatable.
It's never going to be relatable.
It's never going to happen. But it's like me trying to have a conversation with Paris Hilton about like having a job in college. Like, she'd be like, what are you talking about? So even when I was reading Spare with Prince Harry, I believe I mentioned this to you when we talked. Like, sometimes the way he complains about his dad.
Yeah.
I was like, he doesn't sound that bad.
Yeah.
Well, they have like such a different worldview.
Yeah.
That everybody else is kind of like, I don't understand, but we cannot even imagine ourselves in that kind of life. So it I don't know. It's endlessly fascinating. Okay. So Diana's 7 Days That Shook the World. This is on Apple TV Plus. This focuses on the days following the tragic death of Princess Diana, August 31st, 1997.
Yeah.
I liked this because I felt like, much like everybody else probably, walking oneself through that day, that moment you found out about what happened to her and the days after, because I've asked, for example, my mother, like, did that feel like similar to what you felt like? I don't know, like a John F. Kennedy. And she said, in the respect that you do feel like you're in a fog for a bit. And I remember I was an intern at the White House. I was a freshman in college, and my job was to go to the executive office building, which is next to the West Wing. And I would have to take all these newspapers and cut up little newspaper articles written about the administration and make photocopies into a booklet that I would go around and I would put on each of the desks. And I remember showing up the day after that. I had been actually watching Saturday Night Live when Brian Williams came on the news and he said there's been a car accident. I think all of us kind of thought maybe that this is like a Saturday Night Live skit, like it's not real.
That would be the least funny Saturday Night Live skit ever, right?
I know, but it was just like, this can't be real.
Yeah.
The next day I go into the White House, and I mean, there were hundreds of papers I had to go through, and everyone was just like front page. We can't believe she's gone. Then I went to the embassy, the British embassy in DC, and there were lines longer than you can imagine. And you just had the sense of the world is mourning with her kids. I think every parent mourned like the idea of a mother leaving her children. So I like this doc because it takes you back to who you were in that moment and what envisioning, like what was going on behind the scenes. Harry talks a little bit about in his book, what was happening. And so you think about that now that you've read his book and you watch the boys walk through the street with the carriage. And so that's interesting. Like Diana, our mother, that's the documentary. The other one that you mentioned, 7 Days That Shook the World, was commissioned by Prince William and Harry to commemorate the 20th anniversary of their mother's death. And the two princes appear in the film. And I thought it was very, very moving. You don't have to be a parent to just have your heart ache. And
no, for sure.
Very well done.
I agree. And again, my picks are very much dovetailing yours. This was not planned, but I'm wondering if you've seen this one, because this might be the number one of all of the documentaries I'm bringing to the table today. I don't know why I didn't start with this, but The Princess by Ed Perkins. Have you seen this?
I think so.
I believe it lives on HBO Max. And so this is, like, as I just said, a film directed by Ed Perkins. It came out in 2022. It's told, it's a little bit different because it's told in the present tense. And obviously, in 2022, Diana had been gone for 25 years. And it really this film draws on recently revealed testimony about what you were just talking about, the immediate aftermath of the crash, and some rarely seen archival footage. It covers the most iconic moments of Diana's life. You hear it from her perspective as opposed to, the bird's eye view. It's just really, really good. And I remember, I think I got a screener sent to me of that. So I watched it early, and it was so compelling. And for me, by 2022, right? Like I've never called myself a royal expert, and I never will, but I knew a lot about the royal family, we'll just say, by 2022. And I learned so much in this documentary. So I really recommend this highly. It's called The Princess, and I believe it's still on HBO Max.
The next one I have is called King Charles, the Boy Who Walked Alone.
Oh, that's a good one.
I like this one because I
just watched that actually over the holidays.
I like this one because I feel like, especially interviewing so many people over the years, it's easy to make decisions about people until you start to look at their own origin story and the origin story of their parents. And once you kind of understand where King Charles' life began and his worldview and how his worldview was shaped, you begin to understand how he became the parent that he is to his children, consequently a grandparent too, but moreover, his relationship with Diana, his relationship with his mother and his siblings. There's a quote in this by a former schoolmate, Johnny Stoneborough. He says Charles was the boy who walked alone. This is a 90-minute documentary, Paramount Plus film, a look at the coming of age of the king, featuring interviews with former girlfriends, schoolmates, royal staff, and more. Again, like he's like in modern day times, it would be like somebody watching Paris in Love on Peacock, and you'd go, huh? Like what? That's how their life is. I think it's the same with King Charles. It is so different than our lives, and so much of his upbringing. I mean, he really didn't have like hands-on parents. That affects how you parent. He's sent away to school that he hates. That affects you. Feeling like he can't live up to his expectations, his privacy concerns, marrying someone that he had felt like he had to settle with, like all these things. You're like, okay, well, now it makes sense why he behaves in certain ways, his worldview, how his relationships are with the people in his life. I think everything kind of makes more sense when you look in broad scopes at all of the players in the royal family and what their life experience was, and therefore how they look at the world.
Yeah, when you watch that, because I've seen that as well, I don't envy King Charles at all. Like I know he's the king, but absolutely not. He has had I mean, look, I'm going to say this and people are going to roll their eyes
I'd take it. By the way, I'd be King Charles tomorrow. I'll do it. I'll fill in.
Well, you do I mean, look, I don't want it. I'm not interested in it. Look, I mean, he was raised with distant parents, right? Who were so busy.
Which, by the way, is very typical of the aristocracy.
True.
In
he's
England.
Not the only one. I mean, look, yes, he's in palaces. Yes, he wears a crown on his head. Yes, he's extraordinarily wealthy. But I think that Charles has had maybe one of the more lonely existences, even though he's always surrounded by people. I don't envy him at all. And I watched another one and I can't remember what it was called. It just came out for the coronation and I can't call it right now, but it just, the more I learn about Charles, the more I understand him. And I wouldn't want that lifestyle. If you want that, Kate, you are the queen. I mean, you have 5 children. I've already crowned you queen of this podcast, but
I just feel like I could move in and fix things.
I
feel like they're all so stubborn. I feel like I'd like to just move in. I mean, I feel like I could get everybody together. All right,
you could ship shape if you can raise 5 children and have the amazing career that you do and keep it all in line, then you can do anything.
I feel like the trick with them is just to get them laughing. And I feel like they all have a very good sense of humor.
It's just sense of humor. Yeah.
They're so stuck in what their role is and with the family that that holds them back from a lot of mending the fences.
That's true.
Like I think that they're bred to be competitive with one another.
Oh, of course, 100%.
You could dismantle that a little bit. Like Harry was bred to have to feel less than his brother, and conversely, William was bred to feel like he's got the weight of his shoulders on his, the weight of the world on his shoulders. You could help dismantle that a little bit. I think that would move mountains.
Yeah, well, I think they're doing that with George, Charlotte, and Louis. And
by the way, that's the whole thing I said to you. That's the whole that Harry and Meghan are never going to have a relationship with William and Catherine.
Yeah,
not at this point. Yeah. But if they do, it's because you're gonna have to wait for the cousins to get older, and they're gonna bond.
It's hard to bond though if they never see each other. You know what I mean? One set lives in California, one lives in the UK.
Because their parents rule over their lives, so they're in charge of who they get to see. But once you become around 18 years old and then you have to go to college, you start to strip your parents' ideologies and you begin to develop your own. And when you have the rest of the world saying, your cousin sounds like a real good time, like that, like, why don't you guys hang out? And you start to realize, like, I live in a different era than the era of my parents. And this is dumb. And this is wasted time. And my cousin didn't do anything to me. You're sort of stuck in that vacuum when your parents hate each other. But once you get older, I think that that's all going to be much easier to navigate.
You know what? I'm writing the script in my head right now. In my fictionalized version of the mending of fences, it's Louis that brings everyone together with his boisterous.
Oh no, it's definitely Louis.
Louis's the one. Louis's the glue. Louis and Archie are super close, and that's what sparks all the reconciliation in about 10 years. 15 years.
But it might be a little bit funny too, because like if they stay in California, because they're gonna shit talk them behind the back.
And then Louis like goes to California to visit Archie, and he falls in love with California, and he stays.
And he's
there.
like, I'm gonna stay here. And then they're like, we've lost another one. But
Louis is gonna be the answer to all the problems. I'm telling you, like
So what we need to stop relying on Harry and William to make up. There's no interest. Who cares? Move on. They're all different people. In what world would Meghan Markle and Catherine ever hang out? Probably never. Like their lives are so dissimilar. Never. Cousins are a whole other ball. Like, what if they end up at school together? That would be a good time. Like maybe they all go to like, or two of them go to like University of California, Santa Barbara.
I would love to see that. I'm thinking they're maybe going to more like Stanford or something like that. Not to knock UCSB.
I don't know, but in 15 years,
Harvard,
maybe that's not the school to go to. Maybe that school is going to be like Vanderbilt, and they're in the same sorority or something.
Yeah, I'm into it. Well, speaking of a documentary that is almost painfully obvious to put on this list, although maybe some might not because it is so painfully obvious, I gotta throw Harry and Meghan, the Netflix docuseries, on here. I mean, like them or love them, that's a documentary, and it is.
I mean, that's a way to put it. When my mom said she saw a baby that was ugly, she would go, now that's a baby.
Yeah.
That's a documentary.
It is what it is, right? Like the assignment was bring royal documentaries, and that is that. Now, okay, first of all, I really like the work of Liz Garbus. I like her.
Yes, I do too.
Her resume, like she's done Nina Simone, she's done Ariana Grande, she's done Marilyn Monroe, and so when I heard that she was directing this, I was really excited. And you know what? That I will say that the Harry and by the way, of course, listeners, you all know that this came out in 2022. It's 6 parts. Whereas I learned so much from, for example, The Princess by Ed Perkins, I knew, and I'm not like trying to get up in my ivory tower and say I already knew all that, but like I knew most of this stuff, right? There wasn't much that it taught me. There were some nuances like that they met on Instagram and not on the blind date or whatever, but it just, I don't know. I actually want to know your thoughts on the docuseries.
I thought it was a little too long, and they're never really cross-checked on anything. It felt more like
what I was just about to
diary.
Say. There's nobody they're like screaming into the void. There's nobody on the other side to answer back,
Like in the story about Meghan's niece bugged the living daylights out of me.
Yeah. God, I don't.
And I wanted to jump in and go, wait, you didn't feel rejected by your aunt, that she just sort of cut you out? Like there are so many moments like that where I'm like, wait, what? It kind of felt like they gave them a big paycheck and said, do whatever you want. And it was way too long for them to just do and say with anything without anybody asking them any like follow-up questions.
Right. And even, I don't know if you remember this, but the Sussexes said that, this is not the way we would have told our story, which is kind of
okay. Then why are you wasting our time? Also, I don't think it was actually, I've heard this, and you can do the great service of telling me whether or not this is true or inaccurate. They filmed in a house that actually wasn't theirs for privacy concerns.
Yes, I do believe that is true.
So how can you do?
Yeah, I get
No. You can't do that. That's what you do. If I say to people, like it happens with a lot of singers and documentaries, if they're the executive producer, you got to go, okay. Like,
well, yes. Where's the check and balance?
You can't make a docu-series about your life and use a fake house.
Yeah.
You can't do it.
Well, and then like it reminds me of Mariah Carey, who, look, I mean, this is her prerogative. When she wrote her autobiography, she left out parts of the story that she just didn't want to talk about. And look, that is your prerogative, but that's not like, that's what I'm saying. Where's the check?
But that's not a documentary. Exactly. We need to call that something else. We're going to call that.
We'll remove this from the list then, although I don't want it edited out because I agree. Matters. But
let's caveat as we are mentioning it, not necessarily categorizing it as worth the others in terms of doing the service of research and background for people that are hungry for background information on the royal family. That's a little bit different. It felt very much like Kardashians on Hulu, which I like to watch because it's very pretty.
I love the Kardashians.
Like, you get a good, laugh in a couple scenes, but it's not, definitely not a CNN documentary.
Yeah, that's valid. And so we'll do Harry and Meghan with a little asterisk by it.
Yes.
But it still makes the list. Okay, so what is your next one?
That's actually it for me.
That's it for you.
That's
Okay,
it for
well,
me.
I'm gonna run through a couple more. I think I only have two more. So I want to mention, and I'm wondering if you've seen this, Elizabeth and Margaret, Love and Loyalty on Netflix. I think it was on Netflix. I don't
Oh,
know if
you know
it's still
what?
there.
Yeah, I did. Their relationships were real interesting.
Well, yeah. So speaking of William and Harry, the sibling dynamic between royals is forever complicated. It's not just a William and Harry thing. It's an Elizabeth and Margaret thing. I was wondering the other day, I mean, and I'm sure this isn't the only reason, but did the Wales have three kids so that it wouldn't just be two, like one on one? You know what I mean? Like there's
Mhm.
it's like Luke, and of course it's Louis, who just is amazing. He absorbs, any tension that would have maybe existed if there were just two of them. But this one, it's called Elizabeth and Margaret, Love and Loyalty. It was on Netflix. That's where I saw it. It came out in 2020, and it just, again, as you can surmise, talks about the relationship between the sisters, how Margaret sacrificed happiness for the monarchy, of course, Peter Townsend, all of that. And it's really compelling. And then Charles and Diana, 1983. So this shows Charles and Diana and William, because Diana, kind of controversially at the time, brought a 9-month-old William along with she and Charles on their Australia, New Zealand tour in 1983. Shows them on the tour. There are moments where you can tell that this is not going to work, meaning the marriage, but there's also moments where they seem really in love, and it's
Mhm.
very hopeful. Cracks in the marriage are beginning to show, and that came out in 2021. And then let's see, I have two more, and I'll breeze through. So speaking of Charles, this is the one that I watched. I was sitting here searching in my brain for the name of it, and I have it right here on my list. Charles in His Own Words. So I just watched this over the holidays. It just came out last year in the lead up to the coronation. He is involved. He is interviewed for this, and it's got. I think I watched this on Paramount Plus, but rarely seen footage and interviews. Again, Charles participates. And then the last one, speaking of documentaries that the royal family contributed to and took part in, Prince Philip, the royal family remembers. This was, again,
Oh.
commissioned by it's really good. Commissioned by the
Mhm.
royal family in 2021, shortly after his passing that April. Very intimate portrait of him, as Kate said earlier in the show. If you're a royal follower, we don't have to tell you that Prince Philip is incredibly compelling, both his life in the firm and before it. And so the story that stands out to me from this documentary is apparently Philip would squeeze a mustard bottle together, and like it would shoot up onto the ceilings of these palaces, and like they're so tall that they couldn't get it down, so there's like
Yeah, but then
mustard.
that's awful because then the staff's being berated by their bosses. They're like, you got to get that off, and that's a dick move. Sorry.
Well, I thought it was funny when I think William told it, but now you've bringing me the other side, and you're
Do you know
not
what I mean?
wrong.
It's like, oh great,
You're
now we have
not
to clean
wrong.
the ceiling. Like, what a jerk!
Well,
Look at them
yeah,
scampering to clean it up.
that's a very like, we live in like we're royals, and somebody else will take care of that
Like,
type
oh,
of
he's
problem.
such a riot. He just says the craziest things. Meanwhile, there's like a fleet of like 45 employees. They're
See,
like,
that's
shit.
perspective. They're like, damn it, he's doing it again.
Yeah, because then they're like,
He's
I got to
doing the
stay home
mustard
late.
thing
I
again.
got a wife and kids back at the cottage that I need to go and spend time with, but I can't because now I have to clean the ketchup from the ceiling.
Perspective. It's all about perspective. So listeners, there's our list. That's a dang good start in the world of royal documentaries. And so I want to ask you one more question before we wrap up. So what is a documentary that hasn't been made yet about the royal family that you would like to see made?
Um, the one where I meet Peter at a bar,
The love story of Kate
the
and
love
Peter.
story. I don't know, maybe that.
What about
Um,
me? I would like to be
yeah,
involved
you know
in
what?
that
I would
somehow as
like to
well.
see that for you, Rachel. I would like to see you hook up with him and listen. He does
Well, I'm
like,
very much in a committed, happy relationship, so I feel like I need to not do that.
shoot,
But
fine. Somebody date him so I can find out what's going on. Because I mean, he's handsome and all, but what I really want is to get the scoop on like what's going on behind the scenes.
oh
So
yeah, oh yeah.
I would like a documentary about Princess Anne's kids. No one
Oh
talks
yeah.
about them. I would like um that's what I want right now. But I feel like the cousin one in the future is going to be great.
Yeah. It talked to me in 20 years. I want one on what's going on with the 5 grandkids of Charles. That's what I want. All right. Before we
you know what else I want?
Yeah.
I want a documentary. Oh, I know what I want. This is what I really want.
Okay.
And if somebody wants to work with me on this, I welcome the opportunity. I'd like to sell this to a network.
In the universe.
I would like a documentary that I would like to produce about what happened behind the scenes of Meghan and Harry's wedding.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to interview all the staff, and I want to hear about the conversations, like how people were like, why is George Clooney here? And then George Clooney's like, I honestly don't know. I don't even know this couple.
I don't know how I got here, but I don't know how I got here,
but it just crashed the shit out of this party. And here we are. Like that's what I want.
Oh, yeah. I would watch that in a heartbeat. Absolutely. Kate, you just need to run the world.
Although, you know what? They did have a documentary about, it was like before the wedding. I should have added that. I forget the name of it, but we can look it up later.
Well, actually, Queen of the World, the one I mentioned earlier, that's the one that they show like the behind the scenes of like them looking, the Queen and Meghan looking at her wedding dress and all that.
Was that the one where you go and you see the caterers getting ready and all the things that went into the royal wedding?
I don't think it was that deep.
Oh my God, no! You've got to go and watch that one, because you're not going to feel bad for Harry and Meghan after that at all.
Yeah,
you're going to see how much money they spent, how they did everything to make that a spectacular wedding. And there's this great moment where the carriage leaves this, the ceremony, and they go through that long road.
Yeah.
Where there are all these people. And at one point the carriage kind of slows down and Meghan spots her teacher.
No way. That's cool.
So cute. And she's like, oh my God. And then like waves to her and she's like, that's my old teacher. And I just thought, of all the thousands of people there, that
documentary. I have not seen this.
It's called The Making of the Royal Wedding. I think it's like that. But you go and you see the preparations for all the desserts and what goes into the meal. And how
I'm actually writing this down right now.
They get all the carriages out and they show how they which one's chosen and how the stationery is done. And it's everybody in Windsor is involved in this. And then the route, like the security and how they prepared for that and how they prepared the church and then also how they organized the route after the ceremony. So it kind of like, but it doesn't take you into their wedding reception. So that's where it cut off. And that's the story I want to know after that.
Okay, I don't know how I missed this, but I will be finding this. Do you know what platform it's on, just off cuff?
I feel like I watched it on Amazon Prime, but of course, like we mentioned, these things kind of jump from network to network.
They float around. All right, well, you're amazing. I'm a huge fan. Where can our listeners find you?
So you can listen to Reality Life with Kate Casey everywhere where you listen to podcasts. And I have 6 episodes a week. On Mondays, I tell you what to watch.
Kate. My God.
I know.
Crazy. How are super, I'm sorry, but that is nuts.
And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I do interviews with the talent and the producers and the directors and the hosts behind reality shows, documentaries, and docuseries. And then Saturdays, I have a special series called Saturday Series where I interview people who I know who've had incredible personal stories. It really began with me telling my own story. A spoiler alert, I wasn't raised with my dad, and I think he may have been a spy in Ireland.
Okay.
So I tell that kind of story, and I interview really interesting, cool people on Saturdays. So check that out. I also have that must-watch list at katecasey.substack.com, and make sure you sign up for that, because not only will you get the list of what to watch each week, but you can go back and look for archive lists. And there's plenty to watch. Patreon for bonus episodes, Patreon, patreon.com/KCasey. And then also, finally, you can find me on social media. I'm on Instagram at KatecaseyCA. TikTok, it's Kate Casey, and on Twitter at Kate Casey. If you live in the Los Angeles area, San Diego area, I have a live show on February 28th at the Irvine Improv. And if you come up and say, I loved hearing you chat with Rachel about royal family members, I will be elated. So come see me at the Irvine Improv on February 28th.
If I can find a way out there, I would love to come to your live show. That would be
fun,
incredibly entertaining. Look, let me tell you, listeners, if you go to Reality Life and read her reviews. That tells the whole story of who Kate is and how much her community loves her. I mean, I've never seen in my entire life so many 5-star reviews. Kate, you are the best. And I thank you so much for being here today. This is so much fun.
Such a blast. Thank you.